The champagne glasses shattered against my kitchen floor as I watched the anonymous video on my phone. 24 hours before my 30th birthday party, someone had sent me footage that would destroy everything I believed about my family. My sister Madison was kissing my fiancé Derek in what looked like my childhood bedroom, but that wasn't the worst part. The timestamp showed this happened during my engagement party 3 months ago, while I was downstairs thanking guests for celebrating our love. Before I dive into how this betrayal unraveled a web of lies spanning decades, tell me where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever had your world turned upside down by family drama, and subscribe because this revenge story gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you'll want to see how karma served justice on a silver platter. My hands trembled as I replayed the video for the 5th time. Madison, my younger sister, whom I had practically raised after our parents died in a car accident when she was 16, was betraying me in the most intimate way possible. But as I studied the footage more carefully, something else caught my attention. In the background, I could see documents scattered across my old desk. Documents that looked suspiciously like legal papers. I grabbed my laptop and enhanced the video quality. My blood ran cold as I recognized the letterhead Hartwell and Associates, the law firm that had handled our parents' estate. Why were those papers in Madison's possession? I had been the executor of the will, and all estate documents were supposed to be in my safe. The next morning, I called in sick to my job at the marketing firm and drove to my old family home where Madison still lived. She had always claimed she couldn't afford to move out, despite working as a nurse for 5 years. I had been supplementing her mortgage payments, believing I was helping my grieving sister maintain our family legacy. Madison wasn't home, but I still had my key. Walking through the house felt surreal. Every corner held memories of our childhood, but now, everything felt tainted. I went straight to what used to be my bedroom and found exactly what I feared: a hidden file cabinet behind the closet that I had never noticed before. Inside were dozens of documents that made my stomach churn. Bank statements showing regular deposits into Madison's account from an investment fund I didn't recognize. Forged papers with my signature authorizing the sale of property I didn't even know our family owned. Most shocking of all, a revised copy of our parents' will, one that left Madison significantly more money than the version I had been given. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Hey babe, can't wait for tomorrow night. Madison helped me plan something special for your birthday." The irony was suffocating. While I was discovering my sister had been systematically stealing from our family inheritance, she was also helping my fiancé plan my birthday party, probably laughing about their affair the entire time. I photographed every document and drove straight to Hartwell and Associates. Margaret Hartwell, the senior partner who had handled our parents' estate, looked uncomfortable the moment I mentioned Madison's name. "Scarlett, I was wondering when you would come in," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Your sister has been quite persuasive about certain modifications to the estate distribution." What modifications? I was never contacted about any changes. Margaret pulled out a thick file. "Madison presented us with documentation showing that you had waived your rights to several properties and investment accounts. She said you were overwhelmed with grief and wanted her to handle the financial details." I slammed the photographs I had taken onto her desk. "These signatures are forged. I never signed any waivers, and I certainly never authorized the sale of property I didn't know existed." Margaret's face paled as she examined the documents. "Scarlett, if what you're saying is true, this constitutes serious fraud. Madison has withdrawn nearly $400,000 from accounts that should have been split between you both. $400,000. No wonder Madison had been able to afford her lifestyle while claiming poverty to me. No wonder she had been so eager to help Derek plan my birthday party. She was probably using my own inheritance money to pay for it. There's more, Margaret continued reluctantly. Madison recently filed paperwork claiming you were mentally unstable and requesting full control of the remaining estate assets. She provided what appeared to be medical documentation supporting her claims. My vision blurred with rage. Not only had Madison stolen my inheritance and my fiancé, but she was trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to cover her tracks. The sister I had sacrificed everything for the person I had loved and protected after our parents died had been systematically destroying my life for years. I left the law office with copies of every fraudulent document and a promise from Margaret that she would launch an immediate investigation. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Madison had been planning this for years, carefully manipulating everyone around her while playing the role of the grieving, helpless younger sister. That evening, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone. Derek had sent another text about the birthday party, asking if I was excited. Madison had called twice, probably wondering why I hadn't responded to her earlier messages about finalizing party details. I thought about all the times Madison had seemed to know things about Derek before I told her. All the occasions when she had been at my apartment when I came home from work, claiming she had been helping with wedding planning. The way Derek had started working late more often, always on nights when Madison coincidentally had to work double shifts at the hospital. The anonymous video sender had given me a gift, but I realized it was probably just the tip of the iceberg. If Madison had been bold enough to commit financial fraud and carry on an affair under my nose, what else had she been hiding? I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting them directly, I would let them think their plan was working. I would attend my own birthday party and watch them celebrate while knowing exactly what they had done. But more importantly, I would use the party as an opportunity to gather evidence and allies. I called Derek back, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. I can't wait for tomorrow night. Whatever you and Madison have planned, I'm sure it will be unforgettable. If they wanted to play games with my life, I would show them what a real game looked like. The birthday party they had planned with my stolen money would become the stage for their downfall. The party was everything I had dreamed of, and everything I now despised. Madison had spared no expense, which made perfect sense since she was spending my money. The downtown loft venue sparkled with fairy lights, an open bar served top-shelf liquor, and a live jazz band played in the corner. 50 of my closest friends and colleagues mingled, unaware that they were attending what would become the most dramatic birthday party in our social circle's history. I arrived fashionably late, wearing the red dress Derek had bought me for Christmas. Madison rushed over immediately, her smile so genuine that for a moment I almost doubted what I had discovered. She looked stunning in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. "Scarlett, you look absolutely gorgeous," she gushed, pulling me into a hug that made my skin crawl. "Derek and I worked so hard to make this perfect for you." "I bet you did," I replied, keeping my voice light while studying her face. "This must have cost a fortune." Madison waved dismissively. "Don't worry about money tonight. You deserve to be celebrated." Derek appeared beside us, looking handsome in his navy suit. He kissed my cheek with the same lips that had been on my sister 3 months ago. "Happy birthday, beautiful. Are you surprised?" "More than you could possibly imagine." For the first hour, I played the role of the delighted birthday girl. I thanked guests for coming posed for photos and accepted congratulations on my upcoming wedding. But I was also studying the interactions between Derek and Madison. The way his hand lingered on her lower back, when he thought no one was looking. How she laughed just a little too loudly at his jokes. The subtle glances they shared across the room. My college roommate, Jessica, pulled me aside near the dessert table. "Scarlett, can I talk to you about something? It might be nothing, but I've been watching Derek and Madison tonight, and their body language seems intimate." I had been waiting for this opening. Jessica was a clinical psychologist with a keen eye for human behavior, and her observation gave me the perfect opportunity to begin revealing the truth. "Actually, Jess, I need to show you something." I pulled out my phone and played the anonymous video, watching her expression transform from confusion to horror. "Oh my God, Scarlett! How long have you known?" "I found out yesterday. But there's more." I showed her the photographs of the forged documents and explained the financial fraud. Jessica's professional composure cracked completely. This is sociopathic behavior. The level of manipulation and planning required for this kind of betrayal. Scarlett, you need to be careful. Someone capable of this is capable of anything. I had chosen Jessica as my first ally carefully. As a respected psychologist, her professional opinion would carry weight with others. But I needed more than one person on my side before making my move. I approached my cousin Marcus, who worked in forensic accounting. Marcus had always been suspicious of Madison's lifestyle, often commenting that her nurse's salary shouldn't afford her expensive vacations and designer clothes. "Marcus, remember how you always wondered about Madison's money?" I showed him the bank statements and forged documents. His expertise in financial crimes made him immediately understand the implications. "Scarlett, this is a federal crime. She's committed wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. The FBI could pursue charges based on this evidence alone." "I know, but I want everyone here to understand what kind of people they're celebrating with before I involve law enforcement." Marcus nodded grimly. "What do you need me to do?" By 9 o'clock, I had quietly shown the evidence to 6 trusted friends and family members. The atmosphere in the room began to shift as these allies started watching Derek and Madison with new awareness. Conversations became more strained, and I noticed several people keeping their distance from my sister and fiancé. Madison approached me near the bar, her smile faltering slightly. "Is everything okay? Some people seem tense tonight." "Do they?" I accepted a glass of champagne from the bartender. Champagne I now knew was purchased with my stolen inheritance. Maybe they're just processing some surprising information. What kind of information? I met her eyes directly for the first time that evening. The kind that changes how you see people you thought you knew. Derek joined us, clearly sensing the tension. "Ladies, this is supposed to be a celebration. What's with all the serious faces?" "Derek's right," I said, raising my voice so nearby guests could hear. "This is a celebration. In fact, I think it's time for a toast." I walked to the small stage where the jazz band had been playing and asked them to pause. The room gradually quieted as guests turned their attention to me. Madison and Derek stood together near the bar, both looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Thank you all for being here tonight." I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. 30 years is a milestone, and it's made me reflect on the people who have shaped my life. Some of you have been loyal friends who've supported me through everything. Others... I paused, looking directly at Madison and Derek. "Have taught me valuable lessons about trust and betrayal." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Jessica and Marcus moved closer to the stage, ready to support me. "I want to share something with all of you tonight. Something about the true cost of this beautiful party and the real character of the people who planned it." Madison's face had gone pale. Derek was frantically shaking his head, probably trying to signal me to stop. But I was just getting started. This party was paid for with money stolen from our parents' estate through forged documents and fraudulent signatures. The woman I called my sister has been systematically robbing me for years while playing the victim and accepting my financial support. Gasps echoed through the room. Several guests turned to stare at Madison, who was now visibly trembling. And my loving fiancé has been having an affair with that same sister captured on video during our engagement party 3 months ago. The room erupted. Some guests immediately pulled out their phones to record the drama. Others surrounded Madison and Derek, demanding explanations. A few approached the stage to support me. Madison finally found her voice, shouting over the chaos. "You're lying, you're having some kind of breakdown." Am I? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's sound system. Let's let everyone judge for themselves. The video played on the large screen behind me, showing Madison and Derek in their passionate embrace. The timestamp was clearly visible, proving it had occurred during our engagement party. The room fell silent except for the audio of their whispered endearments. When the video ended, the silence stretched for several heartbeats before the real chaos began. The aftermath of my revelation was immediate and explosive. Derek stormed toward the stage, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Scarlett, you're out of line. We can explain everything." "Explain what exactly?" I called back, still holding the microphone. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my sister while planning our wedding." Or should Madison explain how she forged my signature to steal my inheritance? Madison was crying now, but I could see the calculation behind her tears. She had always been skilled at manipulating people's sympathy. "Scarlett, please, you don't understand the whole situation. I never meant for any of this to happen." But the room was already turning against them. My friend Sarah, a local news reporter, was live streaming on her social media. "This is unbelievable," she whispered into her phone. "I'm watching a woman expose her sister and fiancé for fraud and adultery at her own birthday party." Derek tried a different approach, moving closer to the stage with his hands raised. "Baby, I know this looks bad, but Madison and it just happened. We never planned it. And the money thing is just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Marcus stepped forward, holding up the bank statements I had given him. $400,000 isn't a misunderstanding. It's grand theft. My cousin's voice carried the authority of his professional expertise, and several guests moved closer to examine the documents he was displaying. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, unauthorized property sales, falsified medical records claiming I was mentally incompetent. Jessica approached Madison with her clinical psychologist training in full display. "Madison, the behavior patterns documented here suggest extensive premeditation. This isn't a crime of passion or desperation. This is systematic manipulation spanning several years." Madison's mask was finally slipping. The sweet, vulnerable persona she had maintained for so long was cracking under pressure. "You all don't know what it was like. Scarlett got everything. She was the executor. She made all the decisions, she controlled everything. Because our parents trusted me to take care of you." I shot back. "I sacrificed my own plans to make sure you had a home and an education. I paid for your nursing school, covered your mortgage payments, and gave you emotional support through your grief. And this is how you repaid me." The crowd was now clearly divided. Most people had moved away from Madison and Derek, forming a protective circle around me and my allies. But a few of Derek's friends seemed uncertain, probably wondering if there was more to the story. Derek's best man, Tyler, spoke up from near the bar. Look, this is clearly a private family matter. Maybe we should all just leave and let them work it out. No, I said firmly. This stopped being private the moment Madison committed fraud and Derek betrayed our relationship. Everyone here deserves to know the truth about the people they've been supporting and celebrating. My high school friend Amanda, who worked as a paralegal, had been examining the legal documents Marcus was showing. Scarlett, these forged signatures aren't even good fakes. Any handwriting expert would immediately identify them as fraudulent. Madison, how did you think you would get away with this? Madison's response revealed just how deep her delusion ran. I deserve that money. I'm the one who stayed in the family home, maintaining it, preserving our parents' memory. Scarlett moved on with her life, got a great job, found Derek. I had nothing. You had nothing because you chose to live a lie, I countered. You could have gotten your own apartment built, your own relationships created, your own life. Instead, you decided to steal mine. Derek tried to regain control of the narrative. Everyone needs to calm down. Yes, Madison and I developed feelings for each other, but it wasn't planned. These things just happen sometimes. As for the money issues, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. The reasonable explanation is that your girlfriend is a criminal, said Tom, my neighbor, who worked as a detective with the city police. Tom had arrived late to the party and was just catching up on the situation, but his law enforcement background made his opinion particularly influential. Detective Morrison is right, added Patricia, an attorney who had been friends with my parents. I actually reviewed the original will when your parents died, Scarlett. The version Madison has been working with is significantly different from what I remember. This constitutes multiple felonies. The legal professionals in the room were now openly discussing criminal charges while Derek's supporters were rapidly diminishing. Even Tyler was backing away from his friend, clearly uncomfortable with the mounting evidence. Madison made one last desperate attempt to regain sympathy. You want to know the truth? Fine, Derek came to me, Scarlett. He said he was having doubts about the engagement, that you were too controlling, too focused on your career. I was vulnerable and lonely, and he took advantage of that. Derek's face went red. That's not... I never said you were controlling Scarlett. Oh, so now you're going to lie about that too. Madison turned on Derek with surprising venom. You spent months complaining about her to me. How she micromanaged your life, how she made all the decisions about the wedding without consulting you. You said you felt trapped. I watched with fascination as my former sister and fiancé turned on each other. The alliance that had seemed so solid was crumbling under pressure, revealing the shallow foundation it had been built on. This is rich, I said into the microphone. Now they're both claiming to be victims of each other. Derek, you're saying Madison seduced you while you were having innocent doubts about our relationship. And Madison, you're saying Derek manipulated your vulnerability while also claiming you deserved my inheritance money. The crowd was now completely engaged in the drama. Several people were recording everything, and I could see social media notifications lighting up phones throughout the room. This story was going to spread far beyond our immediate social circle. My college friend Kevin, who worked in cybersecurity, approached me with something new. Scarlett, I've been thinking about that anonymous video you received. Do you have any idea who sent it? I had been wondering about that myself. No idea. It came from an encrypted email address with no identifying information. Kevin smiled grimly. Well, whoever it was, they might have more evidence. People who go to the trouble of documenting affairs usually have multiple recordings. You might want to reach out and see if they're willing to share additional material. The suggestion sent a visible shudder through both Madison and Derek. If there were more videos, their relationship might have been documented for months, providing even stronger evidence of their prolonged deception. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the party. Check your email when you get home. There's more where that came from. I showed the message to Kevin and Jessica, who are now functioning as my impromptu advisory team. The mysterious ally who had started this revelation clearly wasn't finished with their own agenda. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the room, "it appears this evening is far from over. Our anonymous friend who provided the initial evidence suggests there's much more to uncover." Madison and Derek exchanged panicked glances. They were realizing that their carefully constructed deception was unraveling beyond their control, and they had no idea how extensive the evidence against them might be. The party I had dreaded attending was becoming the most empowering night of my life. With each revelation, I was gaining allies and strength, while my betrayers lost credibility and support. But I suspected the biggest surprises were yet to come. The foundation was set for the next phase of this confrontation, and I could feel the momentum building towards something even more dramatic than what we had already witnessed. 3 days after the birthday party disaster, I was riding high on a wave of support and validation. The story had exploded across social media with hashtags like #birthdayRevenge and #sisterbetrayal trending locally. Derek had moved out of our shared apartment, and Madison was facing a criminal investigation based on the evidence I had provided to authorities. I had spent the morning at the FBI field office officially filing complaints for wire fraud and identity theft. Agent Sarah Collins assured me that they had sufficient evidence to pursue federal charges against Madison. Everything seemed to be falling perfectly into place. That afternoon, I met with my newly assembled legal team at Patricia's law firm. Patricia, the family attorney who had known my parents, had agreed to represent me in recovering my stolen inheritance. Marcus was serving as my forensic accountant, tracking down every fraudulent transaction Madison had made over the past 5 years. We've identified approximately $600,000 in total theft, Marcus reported, spreading financial documents across the conference table. The $400,000 we initially discovered was just the beginning. She's been systematically draining accounts since shortly after your parents' funeral. Patricia nodded grimly. With this evidence, we can pursue both criminal charges and civil recovery. Madison will likely face 5 to 10 years in federal prison, and we should be able to recover most of the stolen funds through asset seizure. I felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with sadness. The sister I had loved and protected was going to prison, but justice was finally being served. That's when Jessica knocked on the conference room door with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of nervousness and guilt that immediately set off alarm bells. "Scarlett, I need to speak with you privately," Jessica said, avoiding eye contact with Patricia and Marcus. We stepped into Patricia's private office, and Jessica closed the door behind us. Her hands were shaking as she sat down across from Patricia's desk. "I have something to tell you, and you're going to hate me for it." Jessica began, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you talking about? You've been amazing through all of this." Jessica took a deep breath. "I've been in contact with Madison since the party. She offered me money to convince you to drop the charges." The words hit me like a physical blow. Jessica, my closest friend since college, the person who had stood by me through every crisis, was potentially betraying me, just like everyone else. "How much money?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. $50,000. She said she could access offshore accounts that weren't part of the investigation yet. She wanted me to tell you that pursuing this would destroy what was left of your family, that you should consider the emotional cost of sending your only remaining relative to prison. I studied Jessica's face, trying to understand what I was hearing. Are you telling me this because you're planning to take her offer? Or because you already did? I considered it, Scarlett. I'm drowning in student loan debt from my psychology doctorate. 50,000 would change my life, but I realized I couldn't betray you like that. I'm telling you because Madison is desperate and dangerous, and because she's probably approaching other people in your support network with similar offers. The betrayal felt even worse than discovering Derek's affair. Jessica was someone I had trusted completely. Someone whose professional opinion had helped validate my claims about Madison's sociopathic behavior. Learning that she had even considered taking money to manipulate me was devastating. Who else has she contacted? I managed to ask. I don't know for sure, but she mentioned having conversations with Marcus and Tom. She seemed confident that she could find pressure points for anyone who was helping you. My carefully constructed alliance was crumbling. If Madison was systematically targeting my supporters with bribes and threats, how could I trust anyone? The psychological manipulation was even more sophisticated than I had realized. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Need to talk urgently. Something has come up with the financial investigation. I showed the message to Jessica, who winced. Scarlett, I think Marcus might have taken her offer. He seemed really uncomfortable when I saw him leaving the hotel where Madison is staying yesterday morning. The hotel. Madison wasn't even staying at our family home anymore. She was probably using stolen money to live in luxury while orchestrating her defense against my accusations. 20 minutes later, Marcus called to confirm my worst fears. His voice was strained and defensive as he explained that he had discovered irregularities in the financial evidence that might make the case more complicated than we initially thought. What kind of irregularities? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Well, some of the signatures we thought were forged might actually be legitimate, and there are documents suggesting you might have authorized some of these transactions during periods of emotional distress after your parents' death. I felt sick. Marcus had been bought, and now he was going to use his professional credibility to undermine the very evidence he had helped me compile. Madison's strategy was brilliant in its cruelty. She was turning my own allies into weapons against me. Marcus, are you seriously trying to tell me that I authorized Madison to steal $600,000 and then forgot about it? I'm just saying the evidence is more ambiguous than we initially thought. Maybe we should consider settling this privately instead of involving federal prosecutors. I hung up without responding. Within an hour, I received similar calls from Tom the detective, and even Patricia the family attorney. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Suddenly discovering complications with the evidence suggesting that criminal prosecution might be too harsh, recommending private settlement negotiations. Madison had managed to compromise my entire support system in less than 72 hours. The woman I had underestimated as a simple thief and adulteress was actually a criminal mastermind capable of sophisticated psychological warfare. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, feeling more isolated than ever before. Everyone I had trusted had either betrayed me outright or been compromised by Madison's bribery scheme. The anonymous ally who had sent the original video remained my only reliable source of support, and I had no way to contact them directly. My phone rang, displaying Derek's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Scarlett, I heard about what Madison is doing to your friends. Derek said, his voice heavy with what sounded like genuine regret. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I want you to know that I never knew about the financial fraud. The affair was wrong, but I never knew she was stealing from you. Why are you telling me this? Because Madison approached me too. She offered to split the remaining stolen money with me if I would testify that you had authorized the transactions. She said we could disappear together, start over somewhere else with enough money to live comfortably. I waited for him to continue, not sure whether this was another manipulation or genuine remorse. I told her no, Scarlett. Whatever else I did wrong, I won't help her destroy you financially. But I wanted you to know that she's not planning to stop. She's going to keep attacking everyone around you until you have no choice but to give up. The call ended with me feeling even more alone than before. Madison had successfully isolated me from every ally I had built, and she was apparently planning to escalate her attacks even further. For the first time since receiving that anonymous video, I wondered if I was strong enough to continue fighting someone so ruthlessly manipulative. But giving up would mean letting Madison win completely, keeping my stolen inheritance, avoiding prison, and probably finding new victims to manipulate. That thought gave me the strength to keep going, even if I had to face her alone. The next morning brought an unexpected salvation in my email inbox. The mysterious sender who had provided the original video had finally revealed their identity, and the truth was more shocking than anything I could have imagined. Dear Scarlett, the email began. My name is Robert Hartwell, and I am Margaret Hartwell's son. I work as a private investigator, and I have been documenting Madison's criminal activities for over 2 years at my mother's request. She suspected something was wrong with the estate handling, but needed concrete evidence before taking action. Robert, I vaguely remembered him from the law firm, a quiet man in his 30s who occasionally appeared at the office when I visited. He had been investigating Madison for 2 years, which meant he had evidence spanning the entire duration of her fraud scheme. I have approximately 40 hours of video surveillance, hundreds of photographs, and complete financial records documenting every transaction Madison made with your stolen inheritance. More importantly, I have recordings of her attempting to bribe your recent allies, including explicit admissions of guilt regarding both the financial fraud and the conspiracy to have you declared mentally incompetent. The email included a phone number and an invitation to meet that afternoon at a secure location. For the first time in days, I felt genuine hope. Robert had been planning this takedown for years, which meant Madison's recent tactical victories were about to become meaningless. I drove to the address Robert provided, a professional building downtown that housed several private investigation firms. Robert Hartwell looked exactly like I remembered, average-height brown hair, wearing an unremarkable business suit that would make him invisible in any crowd. The perfect appearance for a private investigator. Scarlett, thank you for coming, Robert said, leading me into a conference room lined with monitors and filing cabinets. I want to start by apologizing for not contacting you sooner. My mother insisted we needed ironclad evidence before making any accusations against Madison. Why were you investigating her in the first place? Robert activated one of the monitors, which displayed a timeline spanning the past 5 years. About 6 months after your parents' funeral, my mother noticed discrepancies in the estate documentation Madison was submitting. Small things at first: requests for property appraisals on assets that should have already been distributed, questions about investment accounts that seemed inconsistent with the original will. The timeline showed a clear escalation pattern. Madison had started with small, easily overlooked transactions and gradually worked up to major fraud as she gained confidence. When did you realize how extensive her crimes were? About 18 months ago, when she submitted forged documents claiming you had signed over power of attorney during a mental health crisis that never actually happened. That's when we knew we were dealing with someone capable of systematic fraud rather than simple mistakes or grief-related confusion. Robert clicked to a new screen showing bank records, property transfers, and investment withdrawals. The scope was staggering. Madison had stolen not just from estate accounts, but had also taken out loans against property I owned, without my knowledge sold family heirlooms through private dealers, and even claimed fraudulent insurance benefits on our parents' belongings. The total theft amount is actually closer to $800,000, Robert explained. She's been very sophisticated about hiding the money trail using multiple shell companies and offshore accounts. $800,000. The number was so large it felt abstract, but it represented years of my parents' hard work and careful financial planning that Madison had systematically destroyed. What about the bribery attempts on my friends? Robert's expression darkened. We have everything. Madison was careless because she thought she was in control of the situation. She met with each of your allies in public places, and we recorded every conversation. Jessica actually came to us immediately after Madison's first approach. She was never seriously considering the bribe. Relief flooded through me. Jessica's confession had been genuine remorse for even considering betrayal, not an admission of actual treachery. Marcus, Tom, and Patricia, however, all accepted money in exchange for undermining your case. We have video evidence of the transactions and audio recordings of Madison explaining exactly how she wanted them to sabotage your evidence. Robert showed me clips from the recorded conversations. Watching Marcus accept an envelope of cash while promising to find problems with the financial evidence made me feel sick but also vindicated. These people had revealed their true characters under pressure. The most damning evidence, however, is Madison's conversation with Derek 2 days ago. The recording was crystal clear. Madison's voice explaining how she had been manipulating me since our parents' death, planning to eventually gain complete control of the estate by having me declared incompetent. She described the affair with Derek as a tactical decision designed to isolate me emotionally and make me dependent on her support. She never loved him, I realized aloud. The affair was just another manipulation. Derek figured that out during their conversation. You can hear his shock when Madison explains that seducing him was part of a long-term strategy to destabilize your life. She's been playing chess while everyone else thought they were playing checkers. Robert pulled out an official-looking document. Based on all this evidence, federal prosecutors are prepared to file charges for mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, racketeering, and conspiracy. Madison is looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison and full restitution of stolen funds, plus penalties. What about the people who took her bribes? Marcus and Patricia face disbarment and criminal charges for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Tom could lose his job and pension. Derek won't face criminal charges since he ultimately refused to participate, but his reputation is destroyed. The scope of justice being served was overwhelming. Madison's house of cards was collapsing completely, taking down everyone who had chosen to betray me for money. When will arrests be made? Tomorrow morning, FBI agents will execute simultaneous warrants for Madison, Marcus, Patricia, and Tom. The media has already been alerted. This story is going to be national news because of the unusual combination of family betrayal, financial fraud, and public exposure. Robert handed me a thick folder containing copies of all the evidence. Scarlett, I want you to understand something important. Madison isn't just a thief or someone who made bad decisions under pressure. Our psychological evaluations suggest she exhibits classic psychopathic traits: complete lack of empathy, sophisticated manipulation abilities, and grandiose sense of entitlement. Are you saying she's mentally ill? I'm saying she's a predator who chose you as her primary victim because of your loving, trusting nature. Everything she did was calculated and intentional. The grief-stricken sister persona was completely fake from the beginning. The revelation was both horrifying and liberating. I hadn't failed to see warning signs or made poor decisions about trusting Madison. She was simply a skilled predator who had targeted me systematically. "Tomorrow justice begins," Robert said. "But I want you to be prepared for the media attention. This story has everything journalists love: family drama, financial crime, romantic betrayal, and public confrontation. Your life is going to be very different for a while." I nodded, feeling ready to face whatever came next. After months of manipulation and days of betrayal, I finally had the truth and the evidence to back it up. Madison's reign of terror was about to end, and everyone who had chosen to participate in her conspiracy would face appropriate consequences. The arrests happened exactly as Robert had predicted. I watched from my apartment window as FBI agents led Madison away in handcuffs at 6 in the morning, her designer pajamas and disheveled hair a stark contrast to the composed manipulator who had terrorized my life for years. The local news crews were already positioned outside her hotel, capturing every moment of her humiliation for the evening broadcasts. By noon, the story had exploded across national media. Sister steals inheritance and fiancé gets exposed at birthday party became the top trending story on multiple platforms. The video from my birthday party had been viewed over 2 million times, and legal experts were appearing on talk shows to discuss the unprecedented combination of family betrayal and financial crime. Marcus was arrested at his office in front of colleagues and clients. Patricia was taken into custody during a court hearing, causing a mistrial in the case she was arguing. Tom was suspended immediately and faced departmental hearings in addition to criminal charges. Derek wasn't arrested, but his employer placed him on administrative leave pending investigation of his judgment and character. The vindication felt surreal. After weeks of doubt and manipulation, watching the justice system work exactly as it should was emotionally overwhelming. Robert had delivered on every promise, and the evidence was so comprehensive that all defendants were denied bail due to flight risk and additional evidence tampering concerns. 3 months later, I stood in the same courthouse where Madison had once filed fraudulent papers, claiming I was mentally incompetent. This time I was there to deliver a victim impact statement before her sentencing. She had pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence of 12 years in federal prison, but still had to face me one final time. Madison looked drastically different from the polished woman who had planned my birthday party. Prison had stripped away her designer clothes and professional makeup, revealing someone who looked ordinary and small. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I felt nothing but pity for someone who had thrown away everything meaningful for money she didn't even need. "Your Honor," I began, "Madison Williams didn't just steal my inheritance. She stole 5 years of my life by forcing me to live a lie, believing I was loved and supported by family when I was actually being systematically victimized by a predator." I described the emotional manipulation, the financial abuse, and the betrayal of every sacred family bond. But I also talked about growth healing and the real family I had discovered through this ordeal. This experience taught me that family isn't defined by blood or legal relationships. Real family consists of people who support you during crisis, tell you the truth, even when it's difficult, and choose to stand by you when standing together requires courage. Jessica had proven herself to be true family by confessing Madison's bribery attempt instead of accepting money. Robert had demonstrated family loyalty by spending 2 years gathering evidence to protect someone he barely knew. Even strangers on social media had shown more familial love by supporting me through comments and messages than Madison had ever provided. The judge sentenced Madison to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. She would also pay full restitution of $840,000 plus penalties, surrender all assets, and be permanently barred from handling financial affairs for elderly or vulnerable individuals. Marcus received 3 years in prison and permanent disbarment. Patricia got 18 months and lost her law license. Tom was sentenced to 2 years probation, lost his pension, and would never work in law enforcement again. The financial recovery exceeded everyone's expectations. Madison's offshore accounts and hidden assets yielded enough money to provide full restitution plus additional damages. The total settlement amount was over $1 million, more than my parents had originally left because of investment growth Madison had failed to steal. 6 months after the sentencing, I used part of the recovered money to start a foundation helping families victimized by financial elder abuse and inheritance fraud. Jessica left her private practice to become the foundation's director, turning her psychology expertise toward helping other victims heal from family betrayal. Robert and I developed a relationship that began as professional collaboration, but grew into genuine friendship and eventually romance. Dating someone who had witnessed my worst crisis and still chose to support me felt like the ultimate validation of my worth as a person. The birthday party venue where everything had been exposed became a symbol of transformation rather than trauma. Instead of avoiding that location, I decided to hold the foundation's first fundraising gala there exactly 1 year after Madison's public downfall. 200 people attended, including many who had witnessed the original confrontation. The event raised over $50,000 for victim services and marked my complete transition from victim to advocate. Derek sent a letter through his attorney attempting to apologize and reconcile, but I felt nothing reading his words. The man I had planned to marry was revealed to be someone who could be manipulated into betraying love for the promise of easy money and sex. That person had never deserved my commitment. Standing at the podium during the gala, looking out at faces of people who had supported me through the darkest period of my life, I realized that Madison's betrayal had actually been a gift. Without her crimes, I would never have discovered the strength to fight for justice, the wisdom to recognize true loyalty, or the courage to build something meaningful from traumatic experience. The investigation had also revealed that Madison had been planning to escalate her abuse significantly. Robert found evidence that she intended to have me committed to a psychiatric facility using forged medical records, which would have given her complete control of my assets and probably my freedom. Her arrest had literally saved my life and sanity. Tonight, as I finish telling you this story, I'm sitting in the home Robert and I bought together, looking through thank you letters from families our foundation has helped recover from similar betrayals. Madison is serving her sentence in federal prison, while I'm living a life of purpose and authentic relationships. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, I have to ask, have you ever experienced family karma this intense? When people show you their true character, Do you believe justice always finds a way to balance the scales? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because I read every single one, and your stories help other viewers feel less alone in their family struggles. Please hit that like button. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life drama stories, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that betrayal can become the foundation for something beautiful. Thank you for listening to my family revenge story, and remember, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads directly to the best thing that ever could. The people who love you for real will prove it when everything falls apart, and those are the only relationships worth keeping.